Beyond the Ring, a podcast that covers all things in the stock show industry from the informative to the insane, starring Ryan Rash
The biggest risk is not taking any.
and Dale Hummel.
Failing is an option here. If you're not failing, you are not innovating.
Now on with the show.
Welcome to Beyond the Ring. This is Dale Hummel with co-star Ryan Rash.
Hello, hello, hello.
Current events, Ryan. Would you like to start with traveling to Mexico?
No, because I don't go to Mexico except on a cruise, and I haven't been on a cruise in so long I wouldn't even know what it's like anymore. So it's no worries for me.
I actually enjoy traveling to Mexico, but I did see the travel alert that came up where most of Mexico is now not recommended. And I get it. I've been uneasy about it for probably a year. But Cabo, Cancun, those high tourist destinations, probably still okay. But I'm just going to skip it. How's that sound? Skip it.
There was something on the news today, and there's two places that are safe to travel in Mexico, and I know one of them is Cancun.
And I thought I saw that entire state was red, but I would have to agree that for some reason in the past, the drug cartel has left the vacation destinations alone just because they bring in so much. I don't know. It's confusing to me, but I believe this was on the news or triggered because somebody that had drove down, a family or a group of people that drove down into Mexico.
They had been held hostage, taken hostage, just under gunfire.
Maybe one of them even shot.
I don't know. It was under gunfire, and they're gone. Like they haven't recovered them.
And I've crossed there at Brownsville, or I've crossed the border in vehicles many times over the years, and that is an absolute. I just would not do that at this point. Not even a consideration. Those border towns used to be kind of fun. Yeah, I don't see it anymore. I'm out.
I have never found the border towns fun or entertaining or anything. So yeah, I'm good. Not going.
You're fine. Well, it's clear at this point that you and I have agreed on this for a long time, but the general populace and departments of our government or the United States Energy Department, other things, are continuing to come out and say that COVID came out of the Wuhan lab. And it's so crazy. We actually funded this research approved by Fauci. How is this possible? How is he not held accountable? I believe they're trying to hold him accountable. Do you think they'll ever get it done?
Well, see, I really don't care about Fauci anymore because he's a moron and he's no longer part of the government. I think that we should hold your good friends, China, responsible. That's what I think.
Absolutely.
Fauci is small potatoes to me.
No, I agree.
What are you going to do? Lock him up? He's 97 anyway.
What do you think? And I don't hear this. What about all the other countries around the world that were hit even maybe harder proportionally than what we were? Are they not as upset as what you and I are?
Evidently not, because you don't hear nothing.
I don't hear about it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So I don't know.
I just think it's funny that it's taken them however long to figure out what everybody knew from the beginning.
I don't think to figure it out. Oh, not to figure it out, but to
admit.
Yes, and Fauci still isn't admitting it.
But because then he'll be in jail.
Yeah, I have no idea where that man is evil to the core, and I'm with you. I would like to see him. I'm not going to say what I'd like to see done, but he is minimal compared to holding China accountable for the mass destruction they did in the world, and that is, in our lifetime, easily the most atrocious crime that's ever been committed. I cannot say for a fact that it leaked out accidentally or if it was intentionally released from the Wuhan lab.
I would say in modern day history, maybe the most atrocious crime in the world, in all history. I don't know. You're reaching there.
No, you're right. In modern day, in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think it even surpassed the world wars. Not that I was born then, but I think it goes beyond that in terms of numbers.
I thought you were on the front lines.
Yeah, just brutal. So I don't know.
My whole thing is on this is like, again, Fauci and whatever and whoever else in the United States had covered up or kept it, whatever. That's all whatever. But if they don't hold China and this lab, whether it was a mistake or whatever else, accountable, Who is to say they won't do it again and it won't be a mistake this time? Even if this was a mistake, okay, let's give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Say it was a mistake, okay?
And that is possible. It is on the table. It is a
But
plausible.
now that they've seen it and it works, if they don't have anything bad happen to them on a significant level because of this, because I mean, I know a lot of Chinese people lost their lives too, but I don't think their government cares. I'm just being
No,
real
I
honest
think
with you.
that's not on
They
the
have a
table.
population crisis as is. And so I really don't think they care. But if something is not done about this, there is no future. The future possibilities of this coming again are greatly increased because, well, we did it once and nothing happened to us.
No, and especially under the current administration, I think that's the reason we're seeing Russia pushing the boundaries or pushing the envelope, China pushing the envelope. All the bad players with Joe in office, this is kind of like a free pass. Let's see what we can get away with. And then he comes out and acts like how strong he is. It's all crap. But the only way to secure world peace, in my opinion, is through strength through the United States. And we don't have that right now. And it's not even something that we are close to right now, especially with Joe in the White House and how unprepared and how little we've spent towards our defense the past few years. It's a mess. It really is. And it concerns me. And we know that the virus was genetically manipulated by man. Everybody's agreed upon that at this point for the most part. And I can't explain to you how simple it would be to replace that genetic modification with from flu-like symptoms to something more lethal. And guess what? Float a balloon over the US and drop it that way. There's no way to prevent a genetically engineered virus made in a lab in China from getting into the US. There's multiple ways they could bring it in. So I don't think it can be stopped. The only thing that I'm can sleep a little easier is I assume if they're in the process of doing something like this, that they would have to have a vaccine that actually works against such to vaccinate their people wherever they want to live on this planet. And if they want to take over the world, I don't think this is their original plan. I think they thought they could do it economically in other manners. But this is way better than destroying the United States and all the fertile ground through nuclear war. They can kill off the people and everything's still perfectly fine here. Conspiracy theory, call it whatever you want. It's way out there, but I think it's plausible. There's nothing that I take off the table when it comes to how bad the Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party, not the people, but the Chinese Communist Party will go to obtain world dominance.
Well, and now did you see that they also are putting out there into the madness, nonsense, whatever, etc., that they think these huge cranes that are in all these ports, that the Chinese are using those as spy tools.
I did not hear that.
Yes, that
Again,
came out today.
nothing would surprise me. And there's no question right now, China, Russia, their relationship has strengthened dramatically. I think tensions between the United States, at least the populace of the United States and their view on China is probably as negative as it's ever been. And yet it's hard for us to imagine. And I'm going to give an example that I'm not proud of. The amount of trade that we're still doing with China. So we went to buy a new couch the other day. I just happy we found a couch that my wife and I could agree on. Everything's good. We pick the couch up, bring it home, and as I'm going to assemble the couch, what do I see?
China.
Yep, made in China. I mean, those things just irritate me to the core, and that could have been made 3 years. Who knows when it was actually produced and shipped over? I don't know, but they're clearly our adversary, and we're still dumping billions and billions of dollars in trade, trillions of dollars in trade going that direction, funding our adversary. And I understand we can't shut it off overnight, but the fact that we're not doing everything physically possible to progress into a situation where we're not dependent on them. Let's take some of that to to Canada, to Mexico, right here in the United States. Let's bump manufacturing up. We used to be the manufacturing country of the world, and we've allowed that now to go to China. And I understand at one point we thought we could build our relationship with China, and it would be a good working relationship. Factories, corporations went offshore, went to China to produce a lot of things because it was more economical for maybe not the right reasons on their end. Was it cheap labor and other things that contributed to that? But I understand the concept and why. But it's clear that's not a two-way relationship that's going to work at all. I am out.
There you go.
Willow Project. Have you heard of the Willow Project?
No.
That was I'm going to apologize. I've not been in tune with the news or researching. We're kind of in the middle of sales season, and that consumes me a little bit. The Willow Project, Biden, I believe, has come out and said he would not veto, and the Republicans are trying to push this through. But I believe it's a pipeline coming down from Alaska, maybe even offshore. I'm not sure, that will produce just under 2,000 barrels of oil a day. So the largest energy project since the Keystone Pipeline was canceled. And it appears Joe's getting a lot of pressure from both sides. But I believe he made a statement that if it passed and it got to the White House, he would not veto it, which I don't know whether to believe that or not. I'm not sure. But big oil project. Maybe he can put his name on it that he saved the energy crisis by the Willow Project.
By not vetoing the Willow Project.
Yes. And not that he destroyed everything we took. We went from energy independence dependent under his administration. We will forget about all that. Don't worry about that. Did you, and I've got too much for current events today. Did you see what the United Kingdom did with asylum seekers? People showing up in boats now to the United Kingdom.
Who would want to go over there?
I think there's a lot of them must be showing up. And would you consider in general Europe and the United Kingdom probably even more progressive or liberal than the United States in general?
Yes.
Or traditionally?
Yes.
They have at least come out, their prime ministers came out and said it's not fair to our tax-paying citizens. It's not fair to those that came in legally for us to allow this continual bombardment. I think it's a fraction of what we're seeing in the southern border come into our country, and we take care of them just automatically. They're turning every one of them around and sending them back to where they came from. They're taking on zero asylum seekers at this point. Zero. And the fact that they've gotten to that point and we still can't get the White House to come out and shut this down and build that wall and do the things that need to be done because of their deranged ass political aspirations is sad. It really is. We're in bad shape there. And it's not just the people coming in, it's the drugs, it's the cartel dollars, the fentanyl, everything that's surrounded by the southern border crisis. It's a mess.
Well, you're not stating the most current event thing.
And what would that be?
You always do this. I don't
I do.
understand why.
I do.
Murdoch, he's going to jail for life twice.
You're right, and I actually saw a lot of that trial, not because I was
not.
searching for it, but it just popped up. I have to admit, when they're giving closing arguments, and I wasn't aware it was. It just happened to come on. I was intrigued enough to watch some of that because it drew me in. And when they came back with a quick verdict, you know what direction it was going. It does surprise me. I believe 9 jurors. I had the bad feeling prior to that there might be one juror in there. And that's all it would take for a hung jury. That one just might say there was not enough evidence to overcome reasonable doubt. But obviously we were wrong.
No, and everybody told me I was wrong, and that's fine. I don't care because I didn't watch it. But I do want to say to all you people that were obsessed with it, I know you're in mourning now because it's over, but I'm sure you can jump on the Idaho murders or something else to fill the void in your life. Yes, I am talking to you, Reagan McKinley and Corley Lynch-Liston.
I strongly recommend you watch. There's a little Netflix series on it that goes interviews all the people. Yeah, I think it's popular. It came up. The reason I saw it is it comes up what's trending on Netflix. And I mean, that thing is leading the way by miles.
Well,
and it interviews lots of people around them.
Well, now there's some other murder that his son evidently was accused of at some point and got
Yeah.
off, and now they're like, who are these people? I
No, and
mean,
that the Netflix series covers that pretty intent. That was what the promo was, and this was like 10 years ago, maybe a while ago. I don't know how long, a while ago.
but now they're demanding that they go back and look into that case and what I don't know. This is very strange. Family is all I can say.
Oh, it is. I think Alex, they called him two different things in the trial. I think he's maybe I believe him to be an evil person.
I don't know. Buster might have killed somebody. Maybe for all you people that were like so enthralled in this, maybe Buster will get brought up and they'll televise that one next. They'll go back.
There is that. I mean, that I don't know what the statute of limitations are, but I bet we're still within it. Within recent history, 5 or 6 deaths surrounding this family. It's not coincidence.
It's very
I,
strange. I'm not gonna see.
no,
I didn't know any of that till after it was over, and so if I would have known all that, then I would have been like, "Oh yeah, they're gonna fry this dude." Because another person that was obsessed with this has informed me that this family since the 1920s have been prosecutors in this county.
yes, great grandfather's grandfather. I
Yeah,
mean, it appears they've truly
I mean they have
dominated
covered up the most
the county.
shit, evidently. I mean, for
And
real.
and and you know what? It makes sense that if they've done that generationally, that
Like
it
100 years now.
yeah,
So
that the accumulation of all this, that even the children thinking they can get away with anything. So they did. That's the only way I can explain it, that they truly believe they could get away with anything until now.
very, very strange. And then the only other thing that I have on current events, because I've been at Houston and going back to Houston and whatever, but CPAC, I don't know how many CPAC things there are a year or if it's 20, I don't know, but it seems like more than one a year. But anyway, they just met last week. And so they took, I thought two very interesting things came out of the CPAC, which for those of you who don't know, like they are the Dales of the world, the conservative of the conservative of the conservative. Like they all take a gun into the convention, and anybody like even looks halfway liberal, they shoot them in the kneecap. But anyway, these are the staunch conservatives. Uh, Two very interesting things came out of their polls. Number one, the last time they did this poll, Trump also won. Who would you like to see president in 2024? But last time, when the last CPAC, and they did this poll, he won by he had like 40% of the vote. This time, 62% of the vote. Last time, DeSantis had 28% of the vote. This time, DeSantis gets 20% of the vote. So, again, very, 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 very pro Trump crowd. But what I thought was even more interesting than the president vote is who would they like to see as the vice president? Do you know who won that deal?
I do not.
It was not DeSantis. He was second.
Who?
Carrie Lake, the lady that
Really?
couldn't win governor in Arizona.
Wow. I
She,
that would not have been I would not have anticipated that.
she won over DeSantis by 10 points.
And is she still battling that
Yes, she is
election?
still battling. Yes, it's in court and all the things. But yeah, that was the choice.
And I'm not, I can't say I'm opposed to her. She just wouldn't have been on my radar.
I just can't believe that she would get it over DeSantis. And number two, while I like her, don't get me wrong, I really was hoping that she would be the governor of Arizona because I thought she had a lot of good ideas. And I think she is like absolutely no nonsense, no bullshit type woman. If Trump won the primaries, I do not know other than a woman, which I think even he's got it figured out. He's got to have a woman. Other than a woman, I don't know what she would bring to the deal because, like, Arizona isn't probably going to help a whole lot in votes, and she couldn't win Arizona. So now I see other women as because she's very good. Don't get me wrong, and think she'd be an excellent president or vice president one day, but like rich white lady is not going to help the diversity of this ticket, is my thing.
You would assume that maybe they thought DeSantis and Trump just couldn't get along. Maybe that's why he didn't. I don't know.
But yeah, so there you go. But
I find that
62%.
so.
62%.
I'm gonna. I believe that, like you said, those CPAC people are as conservative as I am, and are gonna push hard
Maybe
that
worse.
direction. Maybe, and I would love for Trump to be president. I absolutely, if I could just say today, this is who our president. That's easy, no question. I know where his policy is going, and now how he's going to stand up to the media. All of those things I'm in favor of, but I do want to warn everybody once again. I still am not convinced he's electable in the general election, and that very much concerns me. Very much.
Again, I'm gonna tell you, like I said last week, I'm gonna say that y'all better get on board because he's gonna win the primary.
Yes, and then but at post that, what do you think?
I have said from the very beginning, I have concerns about the general election and his electability. I think if it's Biden, he wins. I mean, because dear Lord, everybody's seen what this is. Even the independents don't like that. But I mean, I don't know. I think it's up in the air, but I just do not see anything derailing him from winning the primary because as I have stated, everybody knows what he will do. He had great policy. All the dirt on the man is out there. Like there is nothing else they can come up with that they haven't tried that they didn't use in one of the two presidential campaigns. So I just barring something new, some new disaster, whatever. I just don't see anything derailing him from getting the nomination. So therefore, that is why I'm like, everybody just needs to get on board. I mean, we can wait and see. DeSantis hasn't even announced whether he is or is not going to run all these other things. But like, if I'm DeSantis and I'm thinking about running and I see that number, like the only way to get a quick close on that gap, and these would be the people that go vote in a primary. That is them. That group. The only way to close that gap is to get out there and start hustling. And he's still not announced. So
I assume he's still weighing his options, but he has positioned himself to announce. Maybe that's just to gain popularity, name recognition, so he can set this one out and go again and inform more. I don't know the logic behind it, but from a strategic standpoint, I would not object to what he's doing right now, and then choosing not to run under the assumption that you are correct. And I do believe that Trump will win the primary, that he's better off just leaving that alone and not battling Trump on this one. Do not irritate his strong followers, because if Trump's not in play, I have a feeling Trump supporters would jump on the DeSantis bandwagon over most others.
And I also think if Trump wasn't in it, he would, even though I think there is some, I think the only problems between Trump and DeSantis, because whether y'all want people out here going to send me hate mail, Trump made DeSantis. He was losing the governorship of Florida to a black man that got found in a hotel room with hookers and a lot of cocaine. Okay. But DeSantis was losing. All right. And Trump got.
You see, I forget about that part.
Okay.
I have forgotten. Yes. I don't think most the populace remembers or is paying attention.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, those are the facts. And I think the only friction between Trump and DeSantis right now is that Trump probably called him and said, yo, I'm doing this. He said, well, I'm going to weigh my options. And was not loyal and said, oh, yes, I will not run since you are running again. I think that is probably what the friction is. Trump's out of the equation. Trump does not like to back losers. I think he will endorse DeSantis, stump for DeSantis, do all the things because, again, I'm telling you, and I state, Trump made DeSantis. I was very involved in that little Florida thing. I know. So
I think he came in at a time that DeSantis need help, but look at DeSantis' resume. He pretty much I've not recognized a resume from pretty much birth on that was positioned any better to be a conservative nominee for president.
No,
than
I
DeSantis.
agree. But if
So,
he wouldn't have won, then none of this would have mattered.
nope, you're right. You are correct. No,
And he has
then
done it.
that would have been
He has done a lot for Florida, and obviously they really, really love him because, in all intents and purposes, for most part, Florida is kind of a swing state, and he won by 20 percentage points at the governor deal. So, I mean, he's doing well, but I think if I am him and I am seeing those kind of numbers come out of that deal, I'm either saying I'm going to set this out or I need to get my name in there and we need to start closing the gap now. But again, I'm not him, so it doesn't matter. But found that very
agreed.
interesting.
Possibly our longest current events ever, and I didn't even think
Oh,
I
Jesus, you say that every damn week.
had. With that, youth are still receiving BTR JLA photos or we are receiving photos with their awards. Smiles continue. It's good. It's really good, Ryan. It sounds like you're sending the last, hopefully out today, of the jackets.
Well, they got to get here first.
All good. Any other BTR JLA news you want to put out there?
Again, very excited that everybody's getting their awards. I came home from Houston. The only reason I came home from Houston at all was because the jackets are supposed to be delivered today. If they are, then I will I'll either take them to Houston with me and get them shipped out over the week. But we show cattle tomorrow, so I'm going back to Houston today, whether the jackets get here or not. But we'll get them shipped out. There's only 40 of them left. Want to thank another one of our sponsors that was also a sponsor in 2022 and is again sponsoring in 2023. Crown Stone Equipment is the national hog sponsor for this year. Crown Stone is very proud of their association with the Beyond the Range Junior Livestock Association and their sponsorship. They have 5 locations in Adams, Frederick, Hagerstown, Lancaster, and York counties. And I think the one in Reading County may be up and running, but Crown Stone Equipment is your source for all types of equipment, whether you're looking for construction, agriculture, or landscaping equipment. They've got you covered with brands like Bobcat, Toro, and many, many more. From purchasing to renting, parts to service, Crown Stone Equipment's rock solid customer service is your one-stop shop for all of your needs. And we are very thankful for Crown Stone for being a huge sponsor of the BTRJLA for the past 2 years. And again, if you are interested in becoming a BTRJLA sponsor, all you have to do is contact me. And there are lots of different levels of sponsorship, and we need national sponsors, we need regional sponsors. So please, 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 if you are interested, let me know. And for the first time in 2023, I'm going to read a top 10 because points are going and moving. And so I'm going to do the top 10 all around. And thank you to the listener that yelled at me for not reading these off. I forgot that I had not been reading them off, but the all around top 10. First place, Taylor Poff of Ohio. Second place, Piper Liska, Arizona. Third place, Garrett Roosh of Ohio. Fourth place, Haley Cornett of Ohio. Fifth place, Lane Bauer of Ohio. Sixth place, Grace Sauter of Ohio. Ohio is killing you, people. Seventh is Kelly Simpson of Arizona. Eighth is Avery Walton of Texas. Ninth is Avery Sauter of Ohio. And 10th is Tatum Poff of Ohio. So the leader and 10th place are twin sisters. So that is the first ever BTR JLA top 10 for 2023.
Congratulations, those top 10. That's big. And Ohio must be having a lot of shows right now, you would assume, is what's going on there.
Oh, also, and like another cool thing, because I didn't read the point levels off, I should have, but the winner right now is 494 points, and 10 is 307 points. So,
Wow.
I mean, they've gotten out there and they're getting with it.
Yes, and a thank you to Crown Stone sponsorship. And speaking of sponsors, please give ShowFresh H2O a try. There is zero downside and huge upside. It's all about water intake as it impacts everything else we're trying to accomplish. ShowFresh H2O can be purchased at your local supply trailer or swampfox.com. Main topic time. This is going to be a good one. I predict this one might run a little long,
Oh
possibly.
God.
Only because you and I probably are two examples of most of our life fitting into this topic, and that being thinking outside of the box.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No,
I'm always inside the box.
nope. I will confess that I am outside the box more than I'm inside, and you cannot hide the fact that you're way outside the box.
I
It just
don't know what
is what
you're
it
talking
is.
about. I am just normal and inside the box all the time. It's completely dull. Mhm.
I'm gonna say my entire life post high school is all about finding a different way to accomplish an end goal, and that seems to take me down the outside the box kind of a path. Maybe there's other ways, but that's the way I function. That has been the most, I guess, successful path to accomplishing an end goal. What do you believe in? We can use lots of examples, Ryan, but I think the largest hurdle of people going outside the normal or taking a path that is less traveled, or what we termed as our main topic, thinking outside of the box or acting outside of the box, is twofold. I think if you fear what others are going to think, or you fear the fact of failure or it will not work, those are the two avenues that come into play that stop people from doing such. So if either of this is a concern, is unlikely a person will ever reach way out and try something that's very, very different. Can we agree on that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't care if it's our industry or any other industries. The two biggest factors in anyone not reaching success or not doing or attempting things are, what is somebody going to think about if I do this? And number two, people don't like to take risk. So yeah, that's very, very simple and true. And again, no matter who you are, what you do, if you just continue to do nothing different or nothing exotic, exciting, different than anybody else, then of course you're not going to get huge success. And I'm talking about risk, with great risk comes great success and also failure, and that's just a part of it. Not every single time that we try something is it going to work out, but when you do take that risk and it does pay off, it's worth a lot more than the failures that you had to deal with along the way.
I think that is exactly right, Ryan. And I think those, I mean, it goes back to that. For some reason, to me, it's very simple that there is going to be failure because you're pushing that envelope. And if you're not pushing hard enough to achieve failure on occasion, you're probably not as far out as where I think you need to be to make that progress. And everybody has different life goals. Maybe it's somebody's priority to just stay mainstream and just enjoy life, less stress, less all those things. And that's perfectly fine. But for those that are sitting back and we'll try to relate it to our industry and saying, well, I don't have the capital it needs to go buy these breeding animals to have success, or I don't have this or that, more times than not, it's because we're limiting ourselves to that funnel, going the same pathway that everybody else happens to go down. And you partially were born into, in my opinion, being outside the box, and then you seem to have embraced it beyond that. And almost, I'm going to say, and I feel like I know you fairly well, in most aspects of your life, you're doing exactly what you want to do, and no fear of what somebody else is going to think about it.
And again, I'm not saying that I am the role model in this area
No,
at
no, I
all,
want
but
to go. I want to be clear that no, terrible idea to
uh,
make him the poster child. But
yeah, probably not the poster child for this, but I am just wired extremely different than most people. And my mother has always thought something. I mean, she will say this on record, so it's not like I'm bashing her, but she has always thought that there was something wrong or broken inside me because I just never cared what anyone else thought. I just haven't. And I've said this on the podcast several times before. I have never done anything in my life to get someone to like me because I truly don't care if you like me. Do I want people to respect me? Absolutely. For the things that I've accomplished, the things that I try to accomplish, stuff like that. But like and respect do not go hand in hand most time. I know a lot of people that are respected that are very much disliked. And I know a whole lot of people that are loved and adored that nobody respects them. So it just is what it is. But I have never has it been one of those things for a decision for me in deciding what I wanted or what I wanted to accomplish or how I was going to go about it is, oh my God, what will people think? Or if I do this, so and so's not going to like me. That has just never entered into my decision making process. And that has not been adult life. That has been my entire life. And again, I don't think that I am a poster child or a role model in this in any way because with that, while I am perfectly content and at peace with it, a lot of people would not be able to handle the criticism and all the other things that have come along with that throughout the years. And so I think everyone has to look inside themselves and decide how far they can go on this issue. But for me, it's just never really been something that was ever much thought. And, but I think that everyone, regardless of, your personality or whether you are concerned about what other people think and how, if you are one of those people that wants to be liked and popular and all of those things, I still think that even if you're one of those people, there are times where you probably need to put that aside and take a risk for not only for your own personal growth, but also because of just what this thing is, because this topic is about thinking outside the box and doing things differently than other people. If you don't do some of that, you're never going to grow and you're never going to be wildly successful.
And that comes with failure. Every time that you fail, you're learning from that and realizing, well, no, that didn't work. And I can cite, and if we have time, Ryan, I'll give you some crazy ass projects that I jumped into that did not work. And I get comments from people all the time that every project you seem to take on, even though it's way out there, seems to work. Well, no, that's just the ones you're aware of. You're not aware of some of those that don't work. And Ryan, maybe part of the way we get along on this podcast and in life in general, that I believe we are wired a little bit different, you and I, and in different ways. But every time that I am thinking about how to get to an end goal, whether that be defined as success or gaining monetary capital, whatever it may be, the last thing that comes into my mind is what somebody else is going to think about it. And I don't know this, but I think that's different. Just like you are on the same wavelength there, that doesn't enter your decision making process on what you are going to do. It doesn't come into my process of thought in any manner. And I never realized this until during graduate schools when I decided to take on this exotic cat breeding project. And all of my livestock friends would approach it when discussing, when they found out what I was trying to accomplish in creating a new exotic cat breed, that was beneath them to breed cats instead of livestock, or that it just is, this is crazy, it's not going to work. And if I were to have let that affect my decision to pursue that project, I wouldn't have. I would have left it alone. I would have just stopped right there and been more worried about, okay, I'm more concerned about what A, B, and C thinks than I am taking on this project. And if I would not have taken on that project, my life would have led a more normal path, at least until I found another one or finally got over that concern of what others thought. Fortunately, I had no concern of what others thought. And by creating a new breed we now call a Savannah cat, that has allowed me financially to take on more projects that are outside the box that have led to other goals that myself or my wife Holly and I or our family wanted to achieve. So there don't I'm sure it's just a matter of, for some reason Ryan or I are geared different. A lot of different people out there, they're willing to get past that because you believe this will work. And the other thing, I'm going to try to give you insight into the way my mind works, and I think it's similar for Ryan, that it, to a certain degree, if I can't come up with a logical path, or if there's something going on that I can't understand why. In other words, if such and such is using a product to help that show animal for whatever reason, I can't accept that just because they're using it and had success. I need to understand exactly how it works and a logical reason to defend such. And if I see a opening out there in any business area or animal production area, whatever it is, a gap that could be filled, and I can think of a pathway to get there that is logical, maybe difficult, but logical, I'm going to take that every single time. And I think that the cat business has allowed that financial independence. And once that is achieved, it is easier to take some of that risk and take on some of those failures and absorb those. But I can assure you, when in grad school, I was broke as broke could get, just trying to get by on an assistantship. Um, but you are able to start with ground zero and continue to think outside the box and achieve some of those things that you want to, but not if you're afraid of failure, not if you're afraid of what others are going to think.
Well, you can take that right there that you're talking about, the Savannah Cat project and what it's become and all this stuff, and you can apply it to so many different things in the livestock show industry. And I don't remember what podcast we talked about this, or maybe it was one with Chase. I don't remember, but talking about how all these breeds have changed and all this stuff. What if the first person who, years and years ago didn't ever cross an Angus and a Simmental to try to get them to become black? And I mean, that's just one example. If they would have worried about what other people would have thought and didn't do that, and look at all the other breeds, and I don't know if Simmentals were the first, but I'm just saying, whoever had that idea in the first breed to take this situation and try to make them black in the cattle business, or there's so many other instances in all the species where somebody did something that nobody else did have ever done before, and it is now commonplace and literally changed our industry in so many different ways, in so many different instances. If whoever that person was, would have cared about what everybody was going to think about them, they probably wouldn't have taken that first step. But yet here we are.
Exactly. And let's take it. I'm gonna push you into more personal examples. And I have several more that I can jump into. But Ryan, just like applying it to our industry, and you're an anomaly within our industry. And the way you dressed, the way you act, all of those things, not very many years ago was less accepted then than it is now. Can we both agree on that?
Oh, I don't even think it's accepted now. But I mean, yeah, it's more.
Well, no, it is more accepted now. But the fact that you went out there into a show ring and present yourself as you, and even the fact that you're looking at the audience when you're describing livestock, not because you want to be different, but because it screws you up to look at the livestock, which I think some people are starting to figure that part out. But you weren't concerned. If you were concerned about what others thought, you would have done everything. You would have had to have done everything to appeal to the populace originally, not necessarily now, but initially. Let's go back in time 10 or 15 years. You would have done everything you possibly could to disguise who you are, with hopes that would be more accepted by more of the people in our industry.
Oh, and I think this is the perfect example. And not that, again, I'm not saying the way that I went about it or what I have done is the right way or the wrong way or anything else, but it was just the way that I had to do things because I can no longer live out a lie. Now, if I would have, I mean, we all know I got married to a woman that didn't work out, but after that, if I would have just hidden that I was a homosexual and, dressed more normally and done all these things and all this other stuff, do I think that I would have gotten to judge a lot more of the major shows by now? Probably without a doubt. I don't think there's any question because, again, people come up and talk to me about this subject all the time, and they're like, it, it's nothing to do with your talent or your integrity or any of those things that have kept that at bay. It is because I am, like you said, an anomaly and extremely the polar opposite of what almost every other livestock sorter in this industry is. And so if I would have been concerned about whatever everything, would I have had been further along in this? Maybe so. Would I be where I am as a person? Would I would this industry be where it is as being more accepting, even though we have a long way to go? Absolutely not. Uh, would I have had the opportunity to have countless numbers of kids and families reach out to me in one way or another and tell me how what I have done and my example that I have set has changed them personally and in so many ways, none of that would have happened. And so again, the risk and failure thing, I took a big risk. Has it paid off in a lot of ways? Absolutely. It has 10, 20, 100 fold. Are there things that I still have yet to accomplish because I took that risk and I'm still taking it? Absolutely. Will those happen? I think they should. I want them to. I can't force them to happen. But you talk about risk and failure and not giving up and all that other stuff. I continue to go out there every show that I judge, trying to be the best that I can be for every single one of those kids in the hopes that regardless, because I don't dress and act and judge and look like the typical livestock sorter, that won't matter at some point. And those shows that still elude me will get to be accomplished. And that's the whole thing of risk and failure. It, you have to continue to go down that path and continue to try, or it won't ever happen. But no, when I came out, and again, this isn't about me being gay, and I will say again that I don't ever want to get asked to judge a show because I'm gay. I don't. But I also don't want to be denied or looked over to get to judge a show because I am gay or because how I dress or any of those other things. But that was my mother's and still her biggest concern, and what still keeps her up at night a lot of times is she knew exactly what goals I had in mind, and she just did not think that that was possible in this industry if I truly embraced the person that I was and wanted to be.
Absolutely. And I think that's a tremendous example, Ryan. And even just if we just narrow it down to those rewarding experiences when a family reaches out to you, just on how you impacted that showman or that young person at a show in a very positive way, and they take the time to reach out and give you those are the, and I guess maybe I'm speaking for myself as well. Those are the things that mean a great deal to me. And I think that in itself is an incredible rewarding experience that you've received on many, many occasions. So that is all there. I can come back to the livestock industry and the outside the box, and I gave you the example of the developing a cat breed and how that kind of evolved and the risk that I took there, and again, hopefully I'll get to some of the ones that didn't work. But let's go to the Hummel Livestock Goat Division. And Ryan, you have an idea on how it all came about, but I chose to spend in excess of $1 million, and that was money that I did not have. That was a lot of money that I had to borrow and had to purchase on a contract to buy a herd of goats and bring them to the north before showing goats was even popular up here. Again, many of my friends in the livestock industry did not think this was a good idea. Partially that they thought showing goats was below them. But I think it also proved because we did things a little bit different once we got them up here and exposed the northern portion of our country to showing goats and what goats with hair and presented properly could look like. I think it helped bring goats from the back seat to the front seat and almost made them trendy to this day. And obviously it's a very popular project, and I think that's evident by the dollars that are being spent in it. For one example, and it's crazy how popular showing goats has become compared to not that many years ago when it wasn't even on my radar. So this entire project, and it's worked out very well for us. But I want people to understand that at that time was definitely going outside the box. Why wouldn't I take that $1 million and invest it in a popular show Angus pedigree or show pig pedigrees that were doing well at that time? Well, part of it is everybody else is doing that. This was an avenue that we could bring something different, and all of a sudden we have our own space and can kind of dictate the direction that space is going. And it seems very logical to me. And don't think that purchasing those goats was a project that was done on a whim. Um, Unfortunately, I'm cursed with overthinking everything. And I do occasionally touch in a situation where it hinders me. They're not occasionally, it just does on a daily basis. And when I finally think through the process and make a decision, when I have those close to me that even ask about, well, why did you do that? I'm thinking, well, I never make a decision that hasn't been extremely well thought out, right or wrong. And I make a lot of wrong ones, but there's a lot of thought that goes into making each and every one of those decisions. My wife, Holly, our manager, Craig, and I, we spent 2 years nearly every month making trips to Texas to look at different meat goat genetics and try to better understand where the genetics were that we could possibly piece together to move this forward and make it more acceptable, make an appeal to what I call those crossover families that traditionally showed cattle or sheep or pigs. But let's at least trigger that interest that maybe they want to show a goat. And after 2 years of that searching and everything that we've done, we landed on one place and found a few other outliers from other breeders that we eventually brought everything together. And I promise you, Ryan, and you would understand it, even though you grew up in Texas, and at that time they were already on a huge upswing in Texas. They just weren't being shown here. This was against the grain on every avenue, and it could have been a mistake and a very costly mistake. But I think when you make that level of commitment and you're absolutely determined to find a way to make it happen, you'll stay up day and night those first few years to make sure this is going to go in a good direction. And maybe it's that kind of pressure that it was put on myself, my wife, and our manager Craig to make all that work, because there really was no other choice. That was a very large investment at that time that had to work. It wasn't just something we could do for fun. So it's interesting. We can apply these, overcoming the fear of what others think, overcoming the fear of failure, because both of those, anytime you go against the norm or take a little different path to get to an end goal, both of those things are going to come into play. You are gonna lose maybe respect, at least short term, for some of those that think you're crazy. And there's no question that if you're fearful that it won't work, you're probably not going to do it. So you just have to accept that's part of it. And Ryan mentioned it earlier. If you're not, there's going to be things that you will not succeed before and maybe in between all those successful projects. And with our family and myself, and I think I'm speaking for Ryan too, that still happens today. Take it back to Ryan. He can go judge a show somewhere in the country that maybe he hasn't been before. He may be overwhelmingly accepted by a portion of the population at that show, but there may be another proportion or portion that population that would just as soon never have him back because of him being who he is. So there's a lot of different avenues that we can take to maybe try to better explain how our process works and why we do what we do. And again, it may not apply to you, and I'm sure it doesn't work for everyone. And I've made more mistakes than anybody, and I'm almost proud of some of those failures because you hear it all the time, and it sounds crazy, but by encountering those, it does make you realize that didn't work. Let's learn from it. Why didn't it work? And push you that much harder to find something that does.
Yeah, a point that I just want to bring up on the whole deal with you and the goat thing. Not only you doing it up there in Yankee country when we basically only had goats down here in Texas, but for a lot of our listeners, even a lot of goat showmen right now, I don't think they understand how relatively new this all is. Because I'm telling you, I am almost 100% confident that the first goat show at the Houston Livestock Show was 1998. So this would make it the 25th anniversary. In the grand scheme of showing livestock, 25 years is nothing if we're just being real honest. And I think Houston was the first one of our major shows down here to implement a goat show. Maybe San Antonio did it the same year. I don't know. I can't remember. But I am almost 100% positive that 98 was the first year that we had a goat show at Houston. And uh and I'm sure that a lot of your little Yankee buddies told you were nuts to bring goats up there and do all this other stuff. But then again, look at where we are now. And it's not just, that's a huge example, and I'm not bragging on Dale because we know that I do not like to do that because he does not need anybody to brag on him because dear Lord, that's bad. I have to deal with him every day. But
Continue.
another instance on this, just this much smaller one, or from my recollection, you are probably the first person that ever showed a goat not on a chain and thought that the halter would be better and all this other stuff. And now that is not revolutionary as taking goats from Texas to an I state, but again, think on how that little change has affected so much. And this isn't Dale or anybody else, but little things like that seem like it should not be a huge deal, but it became a huge deal. Some shows didn't want, there for a little bit, wouldn't allow it, all this other stuff. But that has still been in a relatively new species in the livestock show. That has been a big change that has been very beneficial, but yet it was still quite controversial.
No, that is true. And I never even thought about that, at least during this episode. And as we're discussing this, and to me, to show them on a halter, because that's what we're using. If you go to a show before halters became popular, everybody would grab a barn halter to take them to the scales or take them to the wash rack. Very few people would put a chain on them to do so. When we were in our barn, that's what we used all the time. So it just seemed logical. If our goats are more accustomed to being led on a halter and they lead better on a halter than they would a chain, it's just simple, do that. Now, my older children will tell you that they faced quite a bit of discrimination from some judges early on from that process. But I think over time, it became logical. And Ryan and I have talked about this. My brain, maybe I should just speak for myself, that was the logical thing to do. So it wasn't even an option. And was I concerned about what that show thought about it or somebody else thought about it. No, it was more about just allowing those animals to present themselves the best way they can. And it was a very simple decision to make that jump. And even today, I tell our clients, show with the chain, show with the halter, show with that or whatever that child is the most comfortable with and that goat's the most comfortable with. Take the logical path. Don't don't just do something because others are doing it. And Ryan and I talk about supplements all the time that I'll sometimes pick on some of them that are probably beneficial. But you I do not understand why some people would feed something if they don't even understand how or what it's going to do for or against that animal, but rather because somebody else is. Ask those questions, whether it's the person that produces the supplement, do the research on your own. All of these things tie together, it just comes back to thinking for yourself a little more. And we can relate it to our current events in politics. I think there's so many people out there, rather than studying those candidates or taking a little time to, they're just getting those media sound bites, and that's allowing them a path that they feel comfortable taking rather than thinking for themselves. So I don't know. There's a lot of things to that, and I can shine an example on something that may not work that I've put a lot of time and capital investment into, and that's our Angus cattle division of our family or Hummel livestock. And we took a way different approach to this by going to Argentina to source genetics that have had very different selection pressure for many years. Maybe go back to some of the popular US genetics here, but tremendous change has been made because of a different direction with selection pressure. And the hurdles to get embryos out of there and eventually into Canada, and eventually from Canada down to the United States, and then registered with the American Angus Association. There were roadblocks that were placed up multiple times that you would have thought, no, this can't be done, but find another way. Continue to work at it. And could I have invested the amount of money that I've put into this project? And it's been a very large number in buying popular genetics right here. Absolutely. But I don't believe there's so many people in that same space going the same direction with the same genetics, trying to get to the same end goal. It doesn't separate you in any manner. And I think there's been a drift between the show cattle, and Ryan will tune in on this one, and the real world. And I have a crazy, crazy idea that I think there's a chance. And my goal is to be able to create cattle that can do both, that are accepted in the show ring, maybe just barely in terms of good enough looking and everything else that comes along with it, but hopefully insert a little more muscle, insert better feet and legs, and some of those things that we definitely want in the real world. And right now, that's different. That's a hurdle. I think those genetics we've brought up have had tremendous success so far, particularly in the high-end commercial world. And we're starting to see a lot more people purchase semen and try to take that approach to the show ring. So it'll take a couple more years to know whether that's even possible, or at least generating some nucleus cattle that eventually can produce show cattle and or really good real world cattle. So there's multiple examples that we can use. And again, this project may turn out to be a failure, because of, if you just look at success or failure, money invested versus money return, I think we're in really good shape and we're going the right direction. But it might not happen. It could be terrible. Ryan, even your idea of starting the Beyond the Ring Junior Livestock Association, there was a chance. I mean, you wanted that bad enough. And I'm sure many people, and the first time you brought it up to me, I believe I would have been one of those. I didn't know what the probability of success was. And I think my good buddy Elon Musk talks about, if you want something bad enough, you need to pursue it, even if the odds are against you that it will succeed. And thus far, it's been an overwhelming success, but you have to continue to push each and every day to make that happen. After it goes for 2 or 3 years, maybe you don't have to worry as much about it. But I'm gonna venture to guess, and I'm gonna expose you a little bit. There's not a day that goes by that you don't think, how can I make this better? How can I make sure this is successful and benefits the youth across the country? Do you ever not think about that for one day?
No, not
I think it
for like
haunts you.
an hour. No, it does haunt me. Haunting is the word. And again, I had this in my crazy mixed up brain for probably 10 years now. And I'll just tell you, my mother said, will not work. You're not doing it. Yada, 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 da, 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 da. And just no. And about 5 years ago, I took it to several other people, one Dale included. And Dale did not say it would not work. He said he had concerns but didn't say flat out work. But there was only like two of the 8 people I ran it by that were that nice about it. That just didn't say you are crazy. This will not work at all. And I think year one was a tremendous success. And it's because of this platform and this that we have through the podcast, mostly because of the sponsors and also because uh Dale and Callie believed in the concept and supported me. But uh every day I think of what can we do? How are we going to get this to go about again? Because again, I think just like every other venture that you take on that's really worthwhile and very time consuming and emotionally consuming, y- just because year one was a success doesn't mean year two will be a success. If it continues at the rate it did and continues to grow and the sponsorships are going, yeah, maybe in 5 years that I won't have to worry about it. But when I did this, I never do anything to fail. Not saying that there have not been failures, but I am not one of those persons that goes into things half-heartedly or half-assedly. And when I do something, I go with the intent of it succeeding. And this thing has been one of those. And because everybody said no and that wouldn't work, that made me that much more determined to see it happen. And the other thing is, you know, while it is a personal success for me, it is a success for every family that takes part of it in this livestock industry or that will in the future. And so that is kind of a thing. Everyone wants to be able to say that they gave back in some way, and this is just another way that I can do it. But yeah, it is a daunting and haunting project, and will probably always be that way. But I don't think it's worthwhile. But I'm telling you, there were lots of people that said absolutely positively, this will not work. Do not waste your time or money. And again, not saying that I want to prove them wrong because I like those people or I want to have run that idea by them and I respect them, but I want to prove them wrong because I think it will only enhance this industry and these kids that we love and are so passionate about.
Absolutely. And then that there's another this triggers another idea that I had. And I know we're running long. We need to kind of summarize it up here. But we talked about the two things: fear of what other people think and fear of failure that stop so many people from venturing outside the norm or outside the box or taking risk in general. Once myself or even Ryan and this Beyond the Ring Junior Livestock Association is a great example of it. Part of it is once we work through that this is something that we want to take on, we're going to continue to do everything possible, overthink everything you could ever imagine to a detriment sometimes to make sure that succeeds and give everything we have to give at some sacrifice often to make sure that project succeeds. And there is a lot to that. And I don't know if it's the way we're wired. And I know there's a lot of other people that do the same. And I'm sure everybody's different, but you have to accept how your thought process works, what you want in life, and how important that particular endeavor is to you. And something like this is so important to Ryan. This could be 3 years down the road, and it could be the largest success ever in our industry. And I promise you, he's still going to lie awake at night or wonder, what do I need to do to continue to make this happen? And it just is what it is. It's to a detriment sometimes. I don't want to pretend that it's anything else, but sometimes that's what it takes for these projects to work.
On this topic and this whole scared of failing, I also think that we need, and this will be my last point to bring up, but I think that so many times we look at failure or success as black and white. And I don't believe that that is necessarily the cause in all instances. And again, I will use my judging career as an example. I took the risk to be who I wanted to be and embrace that and sent that out there into this deal. A lot of people can look and still do, and I have had people say this to me, that I am still a failure because I have not judged every major show that there is. So if you want to look at it, and I could have, and they believe that I could have, if I just wouldn't have gone the route I went. So they see me as a failure. So if you want to look at it in that instance and that instance alone, you can definitely make that argument. But I don't see it that way, and I don't think the majority does because of all the other things that we talked about. And I think that can be used in everybody's story. Risk and failure and success, all this other stuff. It's not black and white. And so because somebody says that you were a failure because XYZ didn't happen, don't listen to that and don't dwell on that, because you know the real things that have happened and the other successes that have come about because of you taking those risks. And so don't always, success and failure is not that black and white. You have to be able to analyze it from all the sides, and including personal growth in there, because the more times that you get knocked down and pick yourself back up and try again, that is a success in itself. And so try not to dwell on that so much. And I think that is a part of things that isn't brought up a lot, that it's just not that black and white in that instance.
So well stated, Ryan. And I think that takes me to my last point. And if you think for 1 second that if fear of failure were to came into the process, Ryan, when I first tossed this concept of having this podcast to go to potentially a national stage with both of us on a microphone, just rambling about whatever, that we're exposing ourselves for huge failure. If people chose not to listen, that would be considered a failure by many. But I think we put us in that ourselves in that situation, that it may work, it may not. Very aware that it could go either direction. We had hopes that it would go well, but still concerned it might fail. But that didn't stop us from jumping on the microphone and doing something we really had no idea what we're doing, and I'm not so sure that we even today. But the fact that we wanted to do what we could to better the stock show industry through conversation, the fear of failing didn't really come into play. So if we started up and we went 6 months and there was 5 people listening, I don't know that we could justify continuing. But I think the fact that you continue with the persistence on something as long as you possibly can until it's no longer possible. And I think there is a line there that you can pursue a project and give everything you got to it. But if it just isn't going to work, there's one of those failures that we've talked about, and it is what it is. And I've experienced many of those, and we'll save those for a later podcast. But I hope this was enlightening, this topic to a lot of you, and hopefully you can relate to it, and maybe it makes a little more sense on where Ryan and I are coming from and our thought process on this whole situation. With that said, Ryan, guess what it is time for?
Uh, did you get a
It is.
sponsor? I told you we weren't doing this anymore unless you got a sponsor.
I didn't. You know that sometimes I get distracted.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Like most of my life, I'm distracted with something. So I did not even. I know I never entertained the idea of a sponsor, but I do recall you talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have to go without one.
Damn
Paula
it.
would be very disappointed if we didn't answer a question. And this was a longer one, so I'm going to paraphrase just a little bit. Hello, question and answer. I'm curious what area of the country you think has the toughest competition all around, not species specific, but just as a whole, when you consider their jackpots, county fairs, and state fairs. I'm from Indiana. It seems like it's getting more competitive every year, even at the smallest jackpot shows. We've already kind of talked about this, but have at it.
I don't know. I think the divide between the competitive areas and the non-competitive areas has greatly diminished. And again, I think at one point, not too terribly many years ago, there was a huge difference in some areas of the country were more competitive than others. I think that is greatly diminished, and all of them are becoming more competitive. But I still think that if you just want to answer honestly and truthfully, the Midwest, those I states, that area, Texas, Oklahoma, California, those are, kind of some of the areas of the country that are super duper competitive, and not only competitive in all species, but have more opportunities in terms of jackpots and stuff like that. And so while I think it is greatly diminished, that gap and that divide, and I think it will continue to do so, there's always, regardless what you do, there's always going to be places where there is a more hotbed of activity, more numbers, more stuff like that. And that's just kind of how I see it. But I think the bigger focus of this question should be that East Coast, West Coast, and anywhere north, south, and anywhere in between, it's getting more competitive, drastically more competitive everywhere. And that is positive.
Excellent answer. And I think the opportunities in Texas have flourished and presented themselves. And where there are more opportunity, that's where some of these things become more and more competitive. And it's almost that the support in Texas, and I'm not just saying Texas, there's other areas, but it's really snowballed that there's support for it and it continues to feed off of itself. And where there's opportunity and where there's support, that's the nature of the game. It's going to get more people involved, and when more people are involved, the more competitive it becomes. Excellent answer. The next one comes from Amanda. Hello. I didn't get the chance when I was younger to go out and show much past our county fair level. Fast forward to today, jackpot shows are more prevalent, and we have the means to take the kids out to shows more frequently. You've talked about crunchy sheep before. I think it was crunchy lambs, actually.
Oh,
I believe
Jesus.
exactly. I believe I know. Remember, we're transparent. We answer the questions that come in. I believe I know what you mean by that, but screw the unicorns and rainbows. Can you go in more depth and detailed on some practices that are done that shouldn't be done, and other practices that maybe were once frowned upon but now are normal and accepted in all species?
So that's a podcast topic, not a question and answer.
That that is where I was going to go with it, and I don't mind trying to answer this one, Ryan, because I'm a I don't even want to put you in
I'll
that.
answer the crunchy sheep
Okay,
part. I mean, but
have at it.
the whole other, all the like,
I was going to sidestep a lot of it, but you
we would be here a whole nother freaking hour and a half if we went through every practice that shouldn't be practiced. And what I mean, no, like the crunchy sheep part. I mean, I'll just, what that term refers to is when a sheep's been aired. I mean, it is what it is.
yes, it is.
I mean,
It
So
I think Amanda's wanting us to go into more detail and maybe sometime. And I guess, unfortunately, as a larger portion of the population gains access to unethical practices, there are more stock show parents taking that path. And I say parents, it's not a 12-year-old's decision how they're going to manage or play within the boundaries or outside. It is the parents that are making these decisions. And the only thing I can say is I just wish parents would lead by an example and surround their children by those they want their children to aspire to. Amanda and Ryan answered the crunchy lamb or crunchy sheep question well. We do stimulate conversation. This is a very touchy subject, but I think your eyes are open that there are some things that are not happening, and I still believe all the positive still overwhelmingly surpasses the negative that we have. But it's something that we do need to discuss, and by discussing it, hopefully brings it all back together, because taking those steps makes it a very uneven playing field. And quite frankly, it diminishes what we're trying to do through work ethic and busting your butt every day to do things organically. So it is of relevance, Amanda. It's a tough one to take on. It's going to take much more than a question and answer, unfortunately.
and
But we
then
can venture into that at some point.
well, and the other thing, I don't want her to think or anybody else think that we have not. First off, we have talked about unethical practices in livestock shows that was and drug testing and all these other things multiple times, but it's also been on podcasts. But we have talked about the fact that maybe we should bring this up again, and y'all didn't have a topic about it. But there are so in this particular instance right here, there are other factors that are at play, and what I mean that is, while we want to bring attention to the issues that need to be addressed and what need to be worked on, and this is definitely one of them, we also don't want to give it any more attention where people that may not know about it say, oh, well, I'll try that at home. And so,
Terrible
again,
idea. Terrible.
right, this is doesn't need to be a do it yourself type thing. And so, when she's asking to go into detail on the practices that should be happening, I don't know if I'd ever be comfortable going into detail on that. Now, could we probably talk about the more ones that happen by name and stuff like that? Sure, but going into detail, no, because then again, we all do understand that this has reached 3 million different sets of ears now. And I would not be comfortable going into great detail on any of those practices as of the fear that someone might take it upon themselves to try this at home.
Agree 100%. I'm going to lighten it up a little bit for you. This is a question that Clifton sent us, Ryan. And
Oh,
it is
God.
definitely directed to you. But Clifton,
Oh,
do
why
not
is
throw
it
this one on me.
that?
I don't even know where Clifton gets. I don't even know where I have no idea where he even gets these. We have shown sheep for 2 years and heifers for 1 year at our county show. I have been to other county fairs that seemed more fair like, but our county is just a show. It's really different county fairs around the nation to make them more fun and enjoyable. I'm not sure what he means by fair. I think more of a show of it. I'm not exactly sure what James is referring to, but P.S. I will definitely be suggesting the goat agility contest that Ryan has witnessed. Didn't you partake in that?
No, I watched somebody judge it. Do not have goat agility
I thought you
contests.
had to
Do not.
judge it. I was hoping
No,
you
I
had.
watched somebody judge it. Do not. I don't know. I think more fair. Like, I don't know if that means like they don't have a. He says been to other county fairs that are more fair. Like theirs is just a show. Like I don't mean if like maybe they don't have a carnival or whatever, all the things. I don't know because I'm a terrible person to answer this because regardless if it is a major show or a county fair, whatever, I would be perfectly fine doing away with the carnivals and all the things and just having the show. But again, I do understand that all the things that come up, like I'm going to be at Houston for 2 more weeks, and the carnival and the rides and the petting zoos and all these other things, the exhibits and the rodeos and all those. That's what keeps the doors open and the lights on and all that. So that's all part of it. So I'm not bashing any of them. But if in an ideal world, if I could go to a fair or a major livestock show where none of that was there, oh, I think it'd be great because then you could just focus on the show. But so I'm not sure what the question was meant to be or whatever. I do not suggest you implementing the goat agility contest. Bad plan.
No, very well answered. Maybe it's just that we need to make a bigger deal of it, like a champion drive at the end of the day that's scheduled at a certain time, so more people from outside our industry or grandparents or relatives or friends can more easily partake and make that a really exciting experience for the exhibitors. I'm not sure, but every show does things differently, and those show managers out there, pay attention, get to other shows that have been very popular and emulate what they're doing, copy what they're doing, do everything possible to make it feel really special for those kids coming out there, whether it's a county show or a local jackpot or Houston. It doesn't matter. Try to make it special, irregardless of what level show that is. And it just takes a little effort. It's not hard. It can be done. With that, Ryan, thank you. This was good conversation. I hope it's well received. Until next week, be safe.
Y'all come back now, you hear?